The first thing I noticed about Daniel's mother was that she looked tired. Not the kind of tired people mention because they want someone to ask if they're okay. It was quieter than that. It sat beneath her eyes in the way she held her coffee for a few seconds before remembering to drink it. I noticed because I was standing across from her in the little coffee shop near Daniel's apartment, holding a paper cup that had already gone cold. She looked up. "You're Daniel's friend, right?" "Yeah." She nodded like she had been trying to place me. "Evan." I blinked. "You remembered. You're hard to forget." She said it casually, then looked back at her phone. I didn't know what to do with that sentence. So I looked at the menu even though I'd ordered the same thing every morning for almost 3 months. Black coffee. No sugar. Daniel used to make fun of me for it. His mother had started remembering it too. The first time she ordered for me, I'd laughed. "You really don't have to do that." "I know." She slid the cup across the counter. "Then why?" She shrugged. "You always look disappointed when they put cream in it." "I don't look disappointed." "You do." There was a small smile at the corner of her mouth. I remember looking down at my cup because I didn't want her to see that I was smiling too. That was how it started. Not with anything dramatic. Just coffee. A few conversations that lasted longer than they needed to. Her asking how work was going. Me asking whether Daniel was still avoiding his mother's calls. She would sigh and say, "He's 24, apparently that makes him a professional at avoiding conversations." I laughed. She did too. Then she would look away first. Her name was Claire. She was 46. I knew that because Daniel had told me once years ago during some stupid argument about birthdays. I hadn't thought about it then. I thought about it later. More than I wanted to. Claire had a habit of folding the corner of her napkin while she talked, not tearing it, just folding it, unfolding it, then folding it again. That morning, she did it while staring at the rain outside. "You waiting for Daniel?" she asked. "No." "Oh." A pause. "I was just nearby." She nodded. I could tell she didn't believe me. The truth was, I had started taking the longer route to work. There were easier streets. Faster ones. I kept choosing the one that passed the coffee shop. I didn't have a girlfriend, I didn't have anyone I was secretly missing. My phone was mostly delivery notifications, work messages, and conversations I started but rarely finished. Sometimes I would type something to someone and leave it unsent. Not because it was important. Usually because it wasn't. That morning Claire checked her phone and sighed. "You okay?" She looked at me. "Yeah." She said it too quickly. Then she turned her phone face down. I noticed her hands. There was a faint indentation around her ring finger, though there was no ring. I looked away before she could catch me looking. "You look tired," I said. The words came out before I could stop them. Her expression changed. "Not much. Just enough." "I am." She picked up her coffee. "And I'm getting tired of people telling me I look it." "I didn't mean to." "I know." She smiled, but it wasn't quite the same smile as before. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Something in her face tightened. She stood. "I should go." "Right." She put on her coat. At the door she turned back. "Evan." "Yes." "Don't tell Daniel you saw me here." I smiled uncertainly. "Why?" She hesitated. "I don't know." Then she left. I watched through the window as she crossed the wet sidewalk. My coffee was still untouched. A minute later my phone buzzed. One new message. From Claire. "Can I ask you something tonight, just you?" I read it twice. Then a third time. And for the first time I wondered if noticing someone was the beginning of something, or the moment you should start walking away. I almost didn't go. That was the part I kept telling myself afterward. I could have ignored the message, let the night pass, let the whole thing become one of those strange little moments that feels important for 6 hours and then disappears. Instead, at 8:17, I found myself standing outside Claire's house with a paper bag in one hand and absolutely no reason good enough to explain why I had brought it. She opened the door before I knocked twice. "You came." You asked. I know. She stepped aside. The house was quieter than I expected. Daniel wasn't there. I noticed that immediately. You said just you, I said. I meant it. She walked toward the kitchen. I made tea. I thought you wanted to ask me something. I do. She filled 2 mugs anyway. For a while, neither of us said anything. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, a pipe made a soft clicking sound. Claire sat across from me and wrapped both hands around her mug. I've been thinking about what you said this morning. About you being tired. Yes. She looked down. My husband used to say I made everything look easier than it was. I didn't know she was divorced until then. You were married. She gave me a small look. For 19 years. Sorry. Don't be. She stirred her tea even though there was nothing in it. He wasn't a bad man, that's almost harder to explain. I waited. We just became very good at living beside each other. The sentence stayed between us. I understood more than I wanted to. Maybe because I had spent enough time living beside people without really being with them. She looked toward the window. After the divorce, everyone kept asking if I was happier. And were you? She smiled faintly. I was quieter. I looked at my hands. That's not the same thing. No. Her eyes met mine. No, it isn't. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she laughed softly. You're too serious. I get that a lot. Daniel says you're impossible to read. That sounds like Daniel. He also says you overthink everything. He's probably right. Claire smiled. Then her expression changed. You should be careful around me, Evan. The words were gentle. That made them worse. I know. No, I don't think you do. She looked at the mug between her hands. You're his friend. I know. And I'm his mother. I know that too. She exhaled through her nose. That's the problem. I wanted to say something clever. Nothing came. The age difference sat there without either of us nomming it. 46 and 24. 2 numbers that suddenly seemed louder than they had any right to be. Claire stood and reached for the kettle. I shouldn't have asked you to come. I can leave. She stopped. Her hand remained on the kettle handle. No. One word. Quiet. Almost accidental. She turned around. Stay a minute. So I stayed. We talked about ordinary things after that. Work. Daniel. The broken cabinet door she'd been meaning to fix. I offered to help, and she laughed when I nearly dropped the screwdriver. You're not very useful. You invited me. I regret it already. But she was smiling. When I handed the screwdriver back, our fingers touched. Neither of us pulled away immediately. It lasted maybe a second. Maybe less. She looked at my hand. Then at me. Good night, Evans. Good night. I walked home thinking about that second. Not because it meant something. Because I couldn't stop wondering if it hadn't. After that night, Claire changed the way she spoke to me. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for me. At the coffee shop, she stopped remembering my order. The first morning, she looked at the menu and asked, what was it again? Black coffee. Right. She wrote it down. She didn't look at me when she handed it over. I told myself it was nothing. Then I stopped going. For 6 days. On the 7th, Daniel called. You've been weird. I've been working. You've been working for 6 days. Apparently. He laughed. Then casually, Mom asked if you'd been by. My stomach tightened. She did. Yeah, why? No reason. There was a pause. Do you two talk now? Sometimes. Daniel made a noise like he was trying to remember something. That's strange. What is? She doesn't usually like my friends. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. Maybe I'm special. Don't get excited. We both laughed. But after we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. The next morning I went back. Claire was behind the counter. She saw me. Stopped. Then looked toward the espresso machine. Morning. Morning. Nothing else. She put the cup down. Black coffee. I nodded. Thanks. She turned away. I should have left. Instead, I stayed there, holding the cup between both hands. Did I do something? She kept wiping the counter. No. Claire. She stopped. Don't. One word. Soft but firm. I lowered my voice. Don't what? She looked at me then. Her eyes were tired again. Make this harder. I didn't answer. Because I understood. Or thought I did. She looked away first. I have to think about Daniel. I know. And you. I swallowed. You don't have to think about me. That would be easier. She said it without looking at me. I almost smiled. Are you trying to make me feel better? No. Good. That finally made her laugh. Barely. Then the bell above the door rang. Daniel walked in. I froze. Claire's hand tightened around the cloth. Daniel looked between us. What are you two doing? Coffee, Claire said. I lifted my cup. Obviously. He laughed. Right. But he looked at me for half a second longer than necessary. Then he ordered breakfast. The conversation became normal again. Too normal. I left first. Outside, I stood on the sidewalk and stared through the window. Claire was watching me. She looked away when I noticed. That night she called. I nearly didn't answer. Hello. Nothing. Claire. I shouldn't have called. You did. I know. Her breathing came softly through the phone. I keep thinking about that night. I sat down. So do I. A long silence. Then she said, that's exactly why we shouldn't. The sentence broke. I could hear her breathing. Shouldn't what? Nothing. Claire. I don't know. The next afternoon, she came to my apartment to return a book I'd left at her house. She stood in the doorway. Neither of us moved. Then she reached up and brushed a loose thread from my collar. Her hand stayed there. For 1 second too long. I looked at her mouth. She noticed. Her fingers dropped. Good night, Evans. It's 3 in the afternoon. I know. She stepped backward. And for a moment I thought she might come back. She didn't. The door closed between us. I stood there with the book in my hand, wondering how close two people could get without actually touching. 3 days later, Claire asked if I wanted to walk. No explanation. Just a text at 7:42. Are you free? I stared at it longer than I should have. Then, yeah. We met near the small park behind her neighborhood. It was almost dark. The benches were still damp from the afternoon rain, and the playground across the path was empty. Claire stood with her hands in her coat pockets. You came. You keep saying that. I keep being surprised. We started walking. For a while we talked about nothing. A broken streetlight. Daniel's terrible sense of direction. The neighbor who kept leaving trash outside the wrong house. Ordinary things. The kind people use when the real thing is standing beside them. Eventually we sat on a bench. Claire rubbed her thumb along the edge of her sleeve. I've been trying to figure out why I keep doing this. Doing what? Calling you. I looked at her. She stared straight ahead. I don't know. You could stop. I know. She nodded. That's the part that bothers me. The silence afterward felt heavier than the conversation. She looked down at her hands. I spent 19 years being someone's wife, then I spent 2 years convincing myself I was fine alone. She laughed once. Not because anything was funny. I got very good at being fine. I didn't say anything. She continued. Then you started showing up. I didn't plan that. I know. You could have told me to stop. I tried. Her eyes finally met mine. Did you notice? Yeah. A small smile appeared. Of course you did. She looked away. I don't want to become someone who needs another person just because they're lonely. I swallowed. You don't need me. You don't know that. No. I looked at the ground. But I know I keep looking for you too. She went still. I hadn't meant to say it. Or maybe I had. The wind moved through the trees. Claire's voice became quieter. Why? I rubbed my palms against my jeans. I don't know. That's not an answer. I know. She waited. So I tried again. Because when I'm around you, I don't feel like I have to fill the silence. Her face changed. Just slightly. Like I'd said something she hadn't prepared herself to hear. I don't know what to do with that. Neither do I. She looked down. I think about you when I shouldn't. I didn't move. She kept going. I think about whether you're coming into the coffee shop, whether you'll text, whether Daniel mentioned something about you. Her fingers tightened around her sleeve. And sometimes I wait for you. That one hurt. Because I knew exactly what she meant. She turned toward me. Evan. I looked at her. She was close enough that I could see the tiredness beneath her eyes again. Her hand moved from her sleeve and rested between us on the bench. Mine was only a few inches away. Neither of us moved. If I asked you to leave, she whispered, would you? I looked at her hand. Then her face. I don't know. Her breathing changed. She leaned toward me. Not much. Just enough. And for one suspended second, neither of us seemed willing to decide what happened next. Claire pulled away the next morning. No explanation. No argument. Just absence. She wasn't at the coffee shop. Her usual chair was empty. I stood there longer than I should have, pretending to read a message on my phone. The barista asked, black coffee. I nodded. I took it outside. It tasted different. Or maybe I was the one who had changed. For the next week, Claire didn't call. I didn't call her either. That was supposed to make things easier. It didn't. Then Daniel showed up at my apartment on Thursday carrying 2 grocery bags and looking annoyed. Mom's moving. I stared at him. What? She found a place. Where? About an hour away. He dropped the bags onto my kitchen counter. She's been talking about it for months. Apparently she's tired of this neighborhood. Months. The word settled somewhere uncomfortable. You didn't know. I guess I knew she was thinking about it. He opened the refrigerator. Do you have anything to eat? Daniel. What? Why didn't you tell me? He looked at me. Why would I? I had no answer. He pulled out a bottle of water. Then he frowned. Wait. What? Why do you care? I looked down. I don't. He watched me for a second. You're terrible at lying. Thanks. You're welcome. He left 20 minutes later. I sat alone at the kitchen table. An hour away wasn't far. People drove farther for dinner. It shouldn't have mattered. But I kept thinking about the empty chair. The untouched second mug. The way Claire had almost leaned toward me before stopping herself. That evening I opened our messages. I typed. Are you really moving? Deleted it. Typed. You could have told me. Deleted that too. Then. I think I understand why you disappeared. I stared at the sentence. I didn't send it. The next morning, Claire finally appeared at the coffee shop. She looked different. Not happier. Just decided. She stood behind the counter and poured my coffee. Black. Thanks. Neither of us smiled. When the rush died down, she came around and sat across from me. I didn't want Daniel involved. He told me you're moving. She closed her eyes briefly. Of course he did. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you'd ask me not to. I wouldn't. She looked at me. You might have. I didn't argue. She folded the corner of a napkin. I was married for 19 years. I have a son who still thinks he can protect me from things I haven't asked protection from, and now there's. She stopped. There's what? Her fingers went still. You. The word wasn't romantic. It sounded almost frightened. I don't know how to fit this into the life I've already built. I looked at her. Maybe you don't have to. She shook her head. You're 24. I know. I'm 46. I know that too. And you're Daniel's friend. I know. She looked toward the window. I keep hoping one of those facts will make this disappear. Has it? She didn't answer. A customer walked in. Claire stood. I have to work. I nodded. She walked away. I opened my phone beneath the table. The message I'd written last night was still there. I don't want you to disappear. My thumb hovered over send. Claire was 10 feet away. I could have called her name. I could have stood up. Instead, I locked the screen and left the message sitting there unsent while the chair across from me remained empty. I went at Claire's house the night before she was supposed to move. I almost turned around twice. The first time was at the end of her street. The second was when I saw the boxes stacked beside the front door. She opened it before I knocked. For a second, neither of us said anything. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know. She looked tired again. Not the coffee shop kind. The kind that comes from carrying something for too long. I came to say goodbye. She stepped aside. Okay. The house looked strange, half-packed. Pictures were missing from the walls, books were gone from the shelves. There was an empty patch on the kitchen counter where her kettle usually sat. I stood there with my hands in my pockets. Claire closed the door. You could have called. I know. You didn't. I know. She gave me a tired smile. You say that a lot. I don't know what else to say. That makes two of us. We stood in the kitchen. The same kitchen where she'd made tea. Where we'd argued about a screwdriver. Where she'd touched my collar and then walked away. She picked up a roll of tape and started folding the loose end around itself. I thought leaving would fix it, she said. What? This. Her eyes moved toward me. Whatever this is. I nodded. Did it? She shook her head. No. That was all. No dramatic confession. Just that. I looked down at the floor. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. You weren't. My chest tightened. She set the tape down. I tried to make you stop coming around, then I started hoping you'd come anyway. I looked at her. I stopped because I thought you wanted me gone. I wanted to want you gone. She said it quietly. And I couldn't. The room went still. I could hear the refrigerator humming. I care about you, I said. She looked away. I know. No, I don't think you do. I swallowed. I don't know what happens after tonight. I don't know if this is a terrible idea. I don't know what Daniel would say. I don't know if you'll wake up tomorrow and regret letting me stand here. She didn't move. But I know I don't want to keep pretending I don't wait for your messages. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. I wait too. That nearly broke whatever restraint I had left. I stepped closer. Not enough to touch. Just enough that she didn't have to raise her voice. You don't have to promise me anything. I can't. I know. And I can't ask you to wait. I wasn't asking you to. She nodded. Then she reached for my hand. Her fingers were warm. She held it carefully, like she was still deciding whether she was allowed. I don't know what this becomes, she said. Neither do I. I could change my mind. So could I. That surprised a small laugh out of her. That's probably the healthiest thing you've said. Probably. She looked at our hands. Then back at me. I'm scared of hurting Daniel. I am too. And I'm scared of what happens if I don't do anything. I didn't answer. She squeezed my hand once. A small, almost ordinary gesture. Then she let go. I think I need to go, I said. She nodded. Okay. I reached the doorway. Claire. She looked up. I almost said everything again. Instead, I smiled. She smiled back. Not because everything was fixed. Just because, for once, neither of us was pretending. Okay, she said softly. Claire moved an hour away. For a while, that was the story. She found a small house near the edge of town. I finished work late, she unpacked boxes slowly, and Daniel complained that his mother had somehow become even worse at answering her phone. Life didn't suddenly become easier. We didn't either. There were weeks when we barely saw each other. There were mornings when I wondered if we'd made a mistake. And there were evenings when I'd drive an hour just to have tea with her and then drive home before midnight. Nothing about it looked romantic from the outside. Mostly, it looked inconvenient. Maybe that was why it felt real. 3 months after she moved, I walked into a coffee shop near her new house. Claire was already there. She sat by the window with a book open in front of her. "You're late," she said. I checked my phone. "It's 8:47. "I know. You're the one who invited me." "I know." I sat across from her. She pushed a cup toward me. "Black coffee." I looked at it. "You still remember?" She gave me a look. "I've had enough practice." I smiled. She smiled back. Some things had become easier. Not easy. Just easier. We still didn't talk about Daniel every time we saw each other. He knew by then that something had changed between us, though neither of us had given him a neat explanation. He was angry. Then confused. Then eventually quieter about it. One Sunday he came to Claire's house for dinner. I was there. The three of us sat around her small kitchen table. Nobody mentioned the obvious thing. Daniel complained about traffic. Claire complained about the grocery store. I burned the bread. It was almost normal. After he left, Claire washed the plates while I dried them. "You think he's okay?" I asked. She nodded. "I think he's getting there." "Are you?" She stopped drying the plate. "Getting there?" "Yeah." She looked at me. "I think so." Then she handed me the plate. Our fingers touched. Neither of us pulled away. Months passed. The bench in the park became ours without either of us deciding it. Sometimes we'd sit there for 10 minutes. Sometimes an hour. Sometimes we'd say almost nothing. Claire still folded napkins when she was nervous. I still noticed her hands. She still pretended not to notice me noticing. One evening we sat there after a light rain. She leaned against my shoulder. "You remember the first time you came over? Unfortunately, you almost broke my cabinet. You said I wasn't useful." "You weren't." I laughed. She did too. Then she became quiet. "You know what I remember?" "What?" "You telling me I looked tired." I looked at her. I probably shouldn't have said that. "No." She smiled. "You shouldn't have." A pause. "But I'm glad you did." I didn't answer. She rested her head against my shoulder again. The streetlights came on. Cars passed. Someone walked a dog behind us. Nothing extraordinary happened. That was the point. For a long time, I thought love was supposed to change your life all at once. With Claire, it changed mine in smaller ways. A longer drive. A cup of tea. A message answered instead of ignored. A chair that stopped being empty. And sometimes at 8:47 in the morning when she slid my black coffee across the table without asking, I remembered the woman who once looked too tired to explain herself. She still looked tired sometimes. So did I. But now when I noticed, I didn't look away. I just reached for her hand. And she let me. Maybe that was the part we had been trying to learn all along. Some people don't make your life perfect. They simply make it feel less like something you have to carry alone. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?